Feilu Fiction Network Class A Contracted Fiction. Comprehensive anime starts from Chuanniang World. Upon waking up and arriving at the world of the ship's mother, the protagonist's journey of time begins. Feilu Novel Network reminds you that this novel and its characters are purely fictional. If there are any similarities, they are purely coincidental and should not be imitated. Chapter 1. Crossing. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Imperial Capital, China. In a residential area provided by a certain company for shared rental purposes. In a room of about 8 square meters, Gao Xiang lay tossing and turning in bed, unable to sleep. Wow, I really want to go through it. As an aspiring young man who still yearns for anime, Gao Xiang has always hoped that he can go through the anime world, and his iPhone has always had the game of Battleship Girl R and a Pokemon online game, and has played them until now. As a homestead man, after a year of forced work and being dismissed, he did not hesitate to devote himself to writing. Of course, he wrote anime peer novels, which can be counted as earning thousands of wages in a month. But he always imagined that he could pass through, which could always be a fantasy. After tumbling for a while, Gao Xiang threw himself into work and finished typing a chapter on his phone before falling asleep. After Gao Xiang fell asleep, a colorful ball of light suddenly appeared from somewhere and came to Gao Xiang's side. Then, the light shone brightly, enveloping Gao Xiang. After a moment, when the light dissipated, Gao Xiang, who was originally lying in bed, disappeared without a trace. Ah, where is this? Suddenly, a mournful howl came from a deserted island, arousing countless birds. In the midst of the deserted island, a young man looked around in a state of despair, with a look of fear on his face. After all, he had been sleeping soundly in bed, but the next day he found himself on an empty deserted island. Everyone would collapse, let alone Gao Xiang, who was just an ordinary otaku and lacked the steel-like psychological qualities of a military man. And this young man is Gao Xiang, but at this time he has undergone a significant change in his original appearance. Not only has he become more than 10 years younger, but his appearance has also become exceptionally handsome. Moreover, the key is that his original high myopia has been completely cured and his vision has returned to normal. My eyes. After all, Gao Xiang just collapsed, but he didn't lose his sanity. He quickly noticed this. After all, he couldn't see so clearly without wearing glasses. How could he not notice it? Gao Xiang quickly realized something and arrived at the beach, picking up the clear seawater and placing it in front of him. From the pool of water in his hand, he could see his current image. Is this still me? Looking at his handsome face, which was more than 10 years younger than his original age, in the midst of the water, Gao Xiang was surprised. Can this be considered a benefit? Revitalization and rejuvenation, combined with beauty and therapeutic effects. If it were such a benefit before, Gao Xiang would probably wake up laughing in his dreams. However, at this moment, Gao Xiangming does not want such benefits and must return to his original life. After all, Gao Xiang is an ordinary otaku and not as skilled as Bei Yi in surviving in the wilderness. On this deserted island, there is not only no food, but also no fresh water. Although there is no threat from wild beasts, there is a lack of food and fresh water, and one will eventually die of thirst and starvation. In the end, no matter what, one can escape death. Ding! The host has successfully entered the game and the system has been activated. Just then, a mechanical sound suddenly sounded in Gao Xiang's ear, and a wave of information flooded into his mind. I didn't expect to just talk about wanting to travel, but it didn't work out. As a result, I actually traveled this time. It's really unpredictable, Gao Xiang sighed after receiving these messages. That's right, now Gao Xiang is no longer in his original world, but has come to another world, commonly known as time travel, and Gao Xiang is also somewhat familiar with this world now. In this world, due to a localized conflict, the relationship between the two major military powers deteriorated extremely, leading to the outbreak of the Third World War and ultimately triggering a nuclear war. The nuclear explosion ignited a chain reaction on Earth, resulting in an unprecedented disaster. Earthquakes, volcanic eruptions, tsunamis. In this catastrophe, due to the violent movement of the Earth's crust, large areas of land, which originally accounted for 30% of the total surface area of the Earth, sank, and were less than 10% of what they were before. And the already boundless sea is becoming increasingly vast and boundless. And the population, which was previously as high as 6 billion, did not survive even after the disaster. This is not the most terrifying, but what is even more terrifying is that in this endless sea, the most deadly group of steel warships with a mysterious origin, known as the Deep Sea, by later generations, have independent consciousness. They are incredibly powerful, brutal and bloodthirsty, and human thermal weapons face deep-sea warships. The war machines developed by technological civilization cannot cause any harm to them, including nuclear weapons. Faced with monster attacks, humans suffered countless deaths and injuries, and it wasn't until a group of mysterious girls appeared that the situation improved. Supervisors, the last reliance for the survival and continuation of human civilization, possess a network of supervisors formed by spiritual energy that most people do not possess. They can build steel warships sleeping in the long river of sub-world history through the construction machines made by special creatures in this world. Fairies. The mysterious girl mentioned earlier is the embodiment of these warships. The Ship Mother. Yes, Ship Mother, whether you are a small destroyer, a large battleship, or a sea base that can take off and land fighter jets. An aircraft carrier, after being built, they all look like girls, and each one is beautiful and irresistible. In this world, not everyone can become a supervisor. To become a supervisor, one must pass a special test. And this test neither tests theoretical knowledge nor tests your determination, but first uses special instruments to test whether you have the qualifications of a supervisor, and then looks at whether the person who wants to become a supervisor can establish a connection with the Ship Mother and give birth to it. The testing method used is naturally construction, and the government will provide the person who wants to become a supervisor with the most basic construction resources and let them build it. If the Ship Mother can be successfully built, they can officially become a trainee supervisor, and after receiving relevant academic training, take office. The destroyer built here will become their initial ship. Chapter 2. Talent. You are listening at novelfull.audio. It's amazing that the world of this ship girl is actually the worldview of the battleship girl R. After digesting all this information, Gao Xiang muttered and immediately checked his system. After all, if you want to survive, you can only rely on the sudden appearance of the system. This system of Gao Xiang is called the gift package system. Although it has simple functions and neither exchange nor lottery functions, each world will provide Gao Xiang with a gift package that is most suitable for the current world in addition to arranging basic identities. After completing the only task in the current world, besides receiving surprise rewards, he can also travel to another world. In addition to these, the system also has a rudimentary attribute panel, which has nothing other than identity and race, and cannot even query specific attributes. It is also the most useless attribute panel, and the name of the attribute panel is simply blind. However, for Gao Xiang, it is the most suitable system, much better than those systems that fail missions and easily erase or castrate the host. The system, open the gift package. Gao Xiang said eagerly. How he is living in this world depends on whether the gift package can give you awesome. Ding. Congratulations to the host for becoming a talent leader and obtaining 1,000 each of the 4 resources. With the system prompt sound, a colorful light enveloped Gao Xiang, while at the same time, a wave of information flooded into his mind. After a moment, the colorful light dissipated, and Gao Xiang opened his eyes, which flashed with surprise. There are some people among humans who, when they reach a certain condition or opportunity, awaken their hidden talents within their bodies and immediately gain recognition from the ship maidens residing in the sub-world. They will receive the initial ship incarnation bestowed by the world as captains to engage in battles against the deep sea, and such captains are called innate captains. Compared to ordinary captains, talented captains not only possess ship maidens in advance, but also possess talents related to ship maidens that ordinary captains do not possess. The talents of the talent supervisor include temporarily enhancing the combat power of the ship mother, temporarily adding a certain amount of buff to the ship mother's gait, and being able to heal the ship mother's injuries. In short, they are basically talents that have a positive effect on the ship mother. Of course, there are strengths and weaknesses in talent. Some can have a significant impact on the entire battle situation, while others are relatively useless and can only play a weak role. And talent captains usually only have 1 to 2 talents, and have never heard of captains with 3 or more talents. However, since it is a cheat specifically designed for Gao Xiang that was released as a system gift package, it naturally stands out. The talent supervisor ability prepared by the system for Gao Xiang is insane, with 6 talents. If Gao Xiang's situation is known to outsiders, he must be sent to the operating table by some crazy scientists. Therefore, as long as Gao Xiang does not lose his intelligence, he will definitely be strictly conservative and will not disclose his situation to outsiders. 1. Emperor Aura. Prototype ship maidens will be produced every day during the construction process. In this world, the host is the only leader who can build the prototype ship mother, and before the host crosses, the prototype ship mother has never appeared in this world. I'm the only one who can build a prototype ship mother. Damn it, the system is too awesome. Seeing only the first talent, Gao Xiang could hardly help crying out. According to the information provided by the system, it can be inferred that the ship maidens in this world are divided into historical ship maidens and unnamed ship maidens. The so-called historical battleships come from battleships built by humans in the past, so their names are often named after battleships. However, due to the inability to find corresponding battleships in history, the nameless battleships can only be named by supervisors, which is also the tragedy of the nameless battleships. In terms of strength, under the same level, the natural history ship mother far surpasses the unnamed ship mother, far from being comparable to the unnamed ship mother. Although the historical battleship maidens may be powerful, they are not the only ones. Taking Richelieu as an example, although having the nickname of the European Emperor's certificate is rare enough in this world, there are nearly 10 even rarer ones, and the actual strength of so many Richelieu battleship maidens at the same level is not different. This is like playing the Battleship Girl or mobile game in the past life. Anyone with a bit of European style can build Richelieu, but as long as they ensure the same level and equipment for the exercise, it is impossible to determine who will win, only heaven knows. After the system introduction, Gao Xiang learned that there was also a prototype ship mother in this world, but no one successfully built it, so no one knew about the existence of the prototype ship mother. In terms of strength, the gap between the prototype ship mother and the historical ship mother other than them is similar to the gap between the historical ship mother and the unnamed ship mother, indicating the strength of the prototype ship mother. Moreover, when the level of the prototype ship mother is raised to a certain extent, it can also awaken special abilities, further widening the strength gap between them and ordinary historical ship women. So relying solely on this aura of the European Emperor, as long as Gao Xiang is given enough time to build all the prototype ship women, his ship women lineup will be absolutely invincible in the world, and there will be no leader who can compete with Gao Xiang. Chapter 3. You are listening at Novel Full.audio. 2. Synchronized Aura. When the host resonates with the sub-world and summons the ship mother, the host will keep pace with the physical fitness of the summoned ship mother. After synchronization, the host's physical fitness remains constant, and even if the summoned ship mother sinks, the host's physical fitness that rivals that of the other ship mother will not be lost. And the synchronous physical fitness, which refers to the host's physical strength, speed, strength, defense, and lifespan, will be comparable to the summoned ship mother, that is, the pure hand-to-hand combat ability of the host can rival the ship mother. However, due to only synchronizing physical fitness, the host does not have subspaces and cannot equip the ship's equipment. This talent is also good. Originally, Gao Xiang's physical fitness was not very good. After all, he didn't love sports very much. Even if his physical fitness improved after crossing this world, he was still a scumbag for the ship mother and the deep sea. After synchronously summoning the ship mother's physical fitness, if the summoned ship mother is a battleship or aircraft carrier or other major sister, then synchronized Gao Xiang will have the power to defeat 1,000 soldiers, that is, he can defeat 1,000 ordinary people in hand combat. Such power can only be sung and conquered in front of Gao Xiang. However, Gao Xiang can only bully ordinary people, but he has no way to deal with the deep sea. After all, he does not have subspaces and cannot be equipped with ship equipment, so he may not even be able to defeat the weakest deep-sea destroyer. After all, even if deep-sea destroyers are not as powerful as Gao Xiang, they can use ship guns to grind Gao Xiang's durability in the form of kites, and then Gao Xiang will naturally have no choice but to fail. In addition to these personal improvements in combat power, Gao Xiang places greater emphasis on competing with the ship's mother in terms of lifespan. As is well known, as the spirit of a warship, the ship's mother can survive as long as she does not sink, while the commander is an ordinary human, and there will always be a day of old death. So although there are many captains in this world who marry their ships, they often end up in tragedy. After all, even if the captains and their ships live safely until retirement, as their bodies age, the captains will gradually move towards death. When the governor died, all the ship maidens who were married would choose Zichen to accompany him into the underworld. Therefore, no matter what, the love between the governor and the ship maiden would inevitably end in a tragic color. However, due to the physical fitness of the synchronized ship mother, with a lifespan comparable to that of the ship mother, Gao Xiang doesn't have to worry about this and can always be with the ship mother. 3. Resurrection talent. Even if the ship mother sinks, as long as her body is basically intact and there is not a day since the sinking, she can be resurrected. Usage restriction. The cooling time for one use is 3 days. With this ability, even if the ship mother accidentally sank, Gao Xiang could resurrect her in time to avoid separation and death. However, Gao Xiang would rather never have the opportunity to use this talent. Besides these 3 talents, Gao Xiang's remaining talents, although not as incredible as before, are also very useful. 4. Enhancement talent. It can enhance a fleet of 6 ship maidens at once, increasing their combat power by half. The duration is 1 hour, and the cooldown is 3 hours. 5. Boost speed. You can increase the speed of one ship's mother several times or more at a time, lasting for 3 hours, with a cooldown of 6 hours. 6. Favorability talent. Any ship maiden built by the host will always maintain a liking rating of 70 or above for quality, and will never drop 70. Compared to strengthening talents and improving speed talents, Gao Xiang values favorability talents more. Generally speaking, newly built ship maidens have a liking for the captain of 50 points. As long as they do not drop 50 points, the ship maidens will obey the captain's orders to fight and will not betray the captain. Of course, if the captain dies, abuses the ship maiden, and causes the ship maiden's liking to drop below 50 points, then large-scale ship maiden defection incidents are highly likely to occur. And Gao Xiang doesn't have to work hard to keep the favorability of the ship mother above 70, and there's no need to worry about her betrayal. Moreover, it's easier to continue improving her favorability than other supervisors. As long as she treats her sincerely, sooner or later she will increase her favorability to 100. You should know that when the favorability of a ship's mother increases to 80, even if the supervisor does some dirty things to the ship's mother, she will not resist. At 90, the ship's mother will even take the initiative to dedicate herself. If it reaches 100, the ship's mother will be loyal to the supervisor and will never lose her favorability. If the supervisor dies, the ship's mother will also actively sink and accompany the supervisor to the funeral. Therefore, Gao Xiang's affinity aura is definitely very practical. There is a saying that in a world where people win their hearts, or when the sky is abundant, it is not as favorable as the land, and the land is not as good as the people. The ship maiden can unite and fight for the leader, which is more useful than any strengthening talent or improving speed talent. Of course, it cannot be compared with Gao Xiang's first 3 anti-heaven talents. Chapter 4. Lexington. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Alright, let's see how lucky I am next. At this moment, Gao Xiang planned to communicate with the sub-world and summon his own exclusive ship mother. Every talent leader has the opportunity to summon the ship mother from the sub-world, but only once. After summoning once, they cannot connect with the sub-world again. There is also a natural distinction between the talented captains, Odi and Feilu. The former has a high chance of summoning the main ship mother of heavy cruisers or light mothers, while the latter can only obediently summon light cruisers and even drive them to hunt in Africa. But I am a traveler with a system in my body, so I must also be Odi in this world, murmured Chiba Ling, and then decisively communicated with the sub-world. In the endless world of darkness and drifting, this is the place where countless ship maidens waiting to be summoned in the sub-world exist. In the center of the sub-world, there is a honeycomb-like structure formed by countless 7-colored light bubbles, and within each light bubble, there is a ship goddess. These ship maidens are all true prototype ship maidens, and they are also the source of all historical ship maidens in the same position. In a colorful light bubble, a girl with flaxen hair silently looked outside. Countless sisters who looked exactly like her disappeared, and then silently watched the emergence of new sisters, and then continued to watch and wait. How long have these days passed? Long time, long time. 1 day. A month. Or a year. Perhaps it will be 100 years. Who knows, who's counting again? It shouldn't have been 1,000 years, otherwise it would have been heartbreaking if we hadn't married for 1,000 years. In the passing time, too many captains called upon her sister, even calling upon her, but with the obstruction of light bubbles, she had no possibility of leaving at all, like an imprisoned canary, and could only sink in loneliness. I don't know how many sisters have been summoned, and how many sisters have returned with despair. Every time one more sister's remaining soul returns, she gains an additional insight into the goodness of that world and the goodness of her supervisor. Despair. What is there to fear? She only needs to pursue the process of satisfying her heart and mind, even if it is destruction waiting for her in the end. She wants to see the brilliant sunshine, beautiful beaches, gentle supervisors. And the despicable deep sea. Ah, where is her supervisor? Have you been bullied by the deep sea? Come and summon her quickly. She wants to fight for him, she wants to protect him, she wants him to take care of her, she needs to rely on him. She wants to go out and meet the person who is willing to take care of her for the rest of her life, the person who promises to support her for the rest of her life. Just the despicable light bubble still obstructs her, like a chasm blocking in front of her, blocking all beautiful aspirations and hopes. She urgently wants a Prince Charming governor to break through this damn barrier, so that she can reach the desired real world and fight alongside her beloved governor until death without regret. She waited and waited, finally the dawn of hope appeared. The light wall in front of her was influenced by an unknown force, causing subtle cracks to appear, and then the cracks continued to expand and spread. That day, she seemed to see light. As the colorful light dissipated, a blurry figure slowly appeared in front of Gao Xiang. The graceful posture of the figure was so captivating and beautiful that it was indescribable. The water vapor dissipated, and Gao Xiang clearly saw the ship mother he summoned. Her slender figure had a graceful curve, and her chestnut long hair fluttered in the wind. The faint blue butterfly hairpin gently stirred the butterfly wings, and the soft navel cap gently draped over her head. The sexy red pointed high heels sparkle, and the beautiful and slender legs are wrapped in seductive black stockings, blending with tight shorts to create a touch of white tenderness. The high heels, black silk, hot pants, and the pure and noble military uniform outline the perfect figure, which is gorgeous and gentle, like the orchid of an empty valley. His exquisite little face was flawless and beautiful, which amazed him for a moment. His blue eyes were gentle, like water rippling and slightly turning, as if embarrassed or distressed, giving off a bright and enchanting feeling, yet still exuding the temperament of a lady from a wealthy family. Such a woman with countless advantages would actually be his mother, and Gao Xiang was stunned for a moment, feeling ecstatic. Isn't this Lexington? Gao Xiang instantly recognized the girl's identity. The drop rate and construction shipment rate of the aircraft carrier and the battleship girl are very low, but Lexington will give it away as long as they conquer the 1.4 system, so she is often the only aircraft carrier in the early days of Feilu. Later, Saratoga also became a cheap item that could be delivered with just 40 clicks, warming Feilu's heart. Open the door. Warm delivery of aircraft carrier. One of the ships that can be modified in the game. After modification, it becomes the current second strongest aircraft carrier, the first being the Saratoga and Mizumi modifications, and generally becomes the earliest modified ship due to its high speed, which has also become one of the main forces in many Telunjuan. In the game, Gao Xiang trains Lexington to level 110. In addition to successfully transforming her, he also gave her a ring to make her one of his wedding ships. How could he not be familiar with this young girl Gao Xiang? And what surprised Gao Xiang was that the girl in front of him was not the same historical ship mother, but the prototype ship mother. The simple attribute panel attached to the system clearly indicated the identity of the girl in front of him as the prototype ship mother. I didn't expect that the aura of the European Emperor would not only be useful in construction, but also in summoning the ship mother to come out of the sub-world. However, unfortunately, such an opportunity won't happen again. Chapter 5. First Sight. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Lexington-class aircraft carrier 1, Lexington is here. Commander, do you feel the breath of the sea breeze? With familiar lines, Lexington's gaze fell on Gao Xiang. When he noticed the same force as breaking the barrier, his face showed a complex expression of excitement, joy, and gratitude. Commander, I finally see you. With a coquettish cry, Lexington pounced directly into Gao Xiang's arms. His strength was so great that if it weren't for Gao Xiang's synchronized halo, which immediately synchronized her physical fitness when Lexington appeared, Gao Xiang would have been knocked out long ago. At this moment, Gao Xiang was in a somewhat awkward situation. In his previous world, he had never had such intimate contact with other girls before. Now, suddenly, he felt the graceful and delicate body in his arms. He didn't know where to put his hands for a while, but after a moment, he carefully placed them on the back of the young girl to gently caress her, which was exploratory. Once the girl in his arms reacted in disgust, he would immediately retract them. However, Gao Xiang is purely a pointless concern. If he could check Lexington's favorability, he would find that the girl's favorability towards him has reached an astonishing 95% or above. Even intimate actions would not bother him, let alone comforting small cases on his back. After a while, Lexington finally left Gao Xiang's arms, and by this time, there were already quite a few water stains on Gao Xiang's shirt. Sorry, Commander, it was me who lost my composure. Lexington saw the water stains on Gao Xiang's upper body, his face slightly rosy. Gao Xiang, who has a normal emotional intelligence, naturally won't get entangled in these small matters. Unfortunately, he doesn't have a handkerchief on his body. How about handing it to Lexington to show off his gentlemanly side? Putting aside these inconspicuous thoughts, Gao Xiang looked at Lexington's clear, sapphire-like eyes, the initial mother of his own world, and said gently, "My name is Gao Xiang. Please advise me from now on, Lexington." Lexington looked at the gentle young man in front of him with a charming smile on his face. Speaking of which, Commander, it doesn't seem like we're in a good place. After calming down, he turned his head and looked around, realizing that it seemed like a deserted island, with no vegetation on his face. Lexington was surprised. Upon hearing this, Gao Xiang hesitated for a moment and decided to take this opportunity to reveal his background. After all, his system did not have strict rules that would erase his qualities once revealed. Although he had not actually been in a relationship, Gao Xiang could feel Lexington's sincere and beautiful feelings towards him. Therefore, Gao Xiang did not want to deceive her, nor did he intend to use the basic identity arranged by the system to deceive Lexington. After all, the cracks in emotions often start with a lie, and he did not want to create an irreparable gap between him and Lexington. That is to say, the commander is actually a person from another world, brought to this deserted island by an existence called the system. After Gao Xiang's explanation, Lexington exclaimed, and quickly accepted Gao Xiang's statement. After all, the existence of the ship mother itself is quite unscientific, and the idea of the existence of another world is not unacceptable. That's right, that's it. It's great that you can accept it, Gao Xiang breathed a sigh of relief. He was also worried that his identity as a ninja in another world would cause discomfort in Lexington, but he didn't expect the girl to easily accept it. Commander, please don't underestimate the ship's mother's heart for the supervisor. No matter what your identity is, I will follow you, Lexington said softly, with an indescribable determination in his tone. Sure enough, the girl's heart was the most unforgettable, and Gao Xiang only felt a clear spring flowing into his heart. However, Commander, perhaps to ease the atmosphere, Lexington shifted the topic to another side. For some reason, I feel a very close aura in Commander, a feeling of almost homology, but Commander is clearly a human. Speaking of this, Lexington's face also showed a hint of confusion. The closeness from Gao Xiang's body is beyond the feeling given to her by those historical ship sisters, infinitely close to her sister Saratoga, prototype ship, but according to the contract connection, she can realize that her supervisor should be a real human. Therefore, Lexington is very puzzled by such a strange situation. How to put it, this should be one of my talents. I have a talent called synchronized aura that allows me to synchronize the physical fitness of the ship maiden I summon from the subworld. That is to say, if not counting the ship equipment bonus, my various qualities are equivalent to those of the summoned ship maiden, including the same lifespan. Gao Xiang explained, perhaps it is because I synchronized your various qualities that this situation occurred. Chapter 6. Conversation. You are listening at novelfull.audio. What an amazing talent this is. Lexington received a lot of news about this world from his sisters in the Asian world, and he was also very familiar with the talents possessed by those gifted captains. However, he had never heard of such an incredible talent before. Indeed, his captains were the best, otherwise he would not have been able to free himself from that closed prison, and hearing Gao Xiang's statement that even life expectancy could be synchronized, the last obstacle in his heart fell as he said, Commander, it's really great that you have this talent. From then on, Lexington's good affection for Gao Xiang reached 100, unwavering to the death. Just like the story of Feng Shi's past life between Ah Feng and Long San Yuan in The Monster List, Feng was sacrificed to the Sea Dragon King in his childhood and became the child foster husband of Long San Yuan. Although he later practiced Taoism, he still couldn't keep his promise with Long San Princess and waited for Long San Yuan to grow up and marry her. What is the feeling of watching your beloved die in front of you? How many people shed tears over 100 years of dragon life? The same goes for the ship mother and the captain. Watching the captain grow old in his arms and his life wither, is it a great punishment for the ship mother? As a result, many captains and ship maidens in the world have broken through barriers and joined forces, and there are also many who have stopped because of such concerns. But Lexington doesn't need to worry about this. His supervisor has the same lifespan as her, so he can stay with the supervisor for a long time without worrying about the eternal farewell between heaven and humanity. This is like a gift from heaven, and it's no wonder Lexington has a strong affection for Gao Xiang. Gao Xiang could see that Lexington's emotions seemed to fluctuate violently, but he did not possess the art of mind reading, so he naturally could not know what Lexington was thinking. He could only vaguely feel that it was related to himself. However, when asking, after all, it had only been a short time since we met, and if it was a private matter, it would add embarrassment. Therefore, Chiba Ling could only stare at Lexington and calm down. Fortunately, as a ship mother, Lexington also had the qualities of military perseverance, which quickly calmed down. However, just as he was about to say something, he suddenly thought of what Gao Xiang had said before and asked, "Commander, I didn't hear clearly earlier. It seems like you said that synchronous halo is one of your talents, which means you have other talents." "That's right, besides this synchronized halo, I also have 6 talents." Gao Xiang naturally won't hide it. "Surprisingly, there are 6 talents." Lexington gasped coldly. According to the information provided by those sisters, it seems that human talent leaders only have 2 talents at most, and her leader has actually tripled. However, thinking of her own leader's identity as a person from another world, she suddenly felt relieved. Even this can be accepted, what else can't be accepted? "What are your other 5 talents, Commander?" Lexington naturally wanted to have a better understanding of Gao Xiang, who was destined to be a lifelong leader. "Well, let's start with the first talent, the European Emperor Aura," said Gao Xiang. "This European Emperor Aura has an exceptionally powerful effect on me, which is to produce a prototype ship whenever I build it. It's actually this." Lexington suddenly lost her mind upon hearing this. She finally knew what the power of breaking through the barrier with the aura of her own supervisor was, and it was actually caused by the supervisor in front of her. Perhaps it was her supervisor from another world who had such talent. After all, even the barrier between the world and the world could be broken, let alone the obstacles that restricted the prototype ship mother. It's just that Lexington overthinked it. Gao Xiang's ability to travel through the world has nothing to do with him, it's all caused by the system. If he had such power, he wouldn't have stayed in that small room all the time, but went to other worlds. When Gao Xiang saw Lexington again, he felt lost and speechless. However, Lexington has been lost a bit too many times. Is it possible that there was something wrong with his speech? Fortunately, Lexington quickly regained his senses and, like Gao Xiang, did not conceal the information about the Asian world. Upon hearing Lexington's account, Gao Xiang, who knew the secrets of the Asian world, finally understood why Lexington would react like that when he first met him, and without hesitation, threw himself into his arms. It turned out to be like this. After all, as Lexington said, I am the benefactor who liberated me from the prison of Lexington's intelligence. Chapter 7. Going to Sea. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Commander, if possible, I hope you can use your talent to rescue all the ship maidens imprisoned in the sub-world. Although women have exclusive thoughts, and Lexington, as a woman, naturally wants to completely gain the favor of Gao Xiang, the gentle and intellectual Lexington will never be a selfish woman. She has been trapped in a closed space in the past, suffering from loneliness, confusion, and even numbness, almost driving her crazy. I believe that other prototype ship maidens who are trapped in their own light bubbles like her must be the same, including her sister, her descendants, and her archenemies. Even the ship maiden, who had never met before, could not bear to watch them suffer there no matter what. Even if she could receive Gao Xiang's love alone, she would always be under the harsh criticism of her conscience and unable to truly obtain happiness. I understand now, I will make every effort to rescue them all. Even if Lexington doesn't say anything, Gao Xiang will do the same. Whether it's not wanting to see those lovely girls suffer, or the dream of the harem, Gao Xiang must rescue those girls from that closed world. But now we are still considering how to leave this deserted island and find a place with people, and find a way to obtain the identity of a supervisor. After all, only with the identity of a supervisor can we obtain the permission to build, said Gao Xiang. Commander, do you have any plans? Lexington asked. Of course, there is a preliminary plan. The system has arranged for me to be an ordinary tourist on a ship, who has been stranded on a deserted island due to a deep-sea attack, and even my ID card has been prepared for me, said Gao Xiang. He took out a card with a sense of technology and said, as long as I reach the place where you are stationed, it is not too difficult to become a true supervisor with my ID card and talent as a supervisor. And since the identity assigned to me by the system is that of a surviving passenger on a sunken ship, it is likely that this place is not far from the route of the cruise ship. Therefore, as long as I explore the surrounding area, I may encounter passing merchant ships and find a way to board them, and then I can go to the nearby garrison. Gao Xiang fully revealed all the plans he had thought of so far. Since that's the case, let me wait for the supervisor to leave this deserted island. I also agree with Gao Xiang's preliminary plan for Lexington, so the next step is naturally to find a way to leave here and look for possible merchant ships that may pass by. Although there were no trees on the deserted island to make rafts, Lexington could easily deploy the hull and soar away. The hull of a ship's mother is a tool for enhancing its combat effectiveness and long-range combat endurance, and it is also equivalent to the body of the ship's mother. However, compared to other ships that require thousands of people to operate normally, the hull of the ship only requires one person, and can be manipulated as desired. There is a saying that goes, a ship without a hull is incomplete. A ship can only exert its maximum combat power when it has a hull, and the combat power level without a hull is less than 1/3 of that of the former. Moreover, even if the hull is damaged, the mother of the ship will not be injured as a result, and can immediately drop the hull and use the weapons on board for combat. This type of weapon, which can switch states at any time, is obviously superior to traditional warships that require a lot of people to operate, are extremely expensive, and require cumbersome maintenance. But before setting off, let's supplement some resources first. Gao Xiang said, taking out an aluminum ingot and handing it to Lexington. The so-called beginner gift package not only offered a talent supervisor identity, but also offered 4 resources of 1,000 each. Although the quantity was not too large, it could support a large-scale construction, but it had a great impact on the present. After all, Lexington has just been summoned from the sub-world by Gao Xiang, and its resources have not been replenished, making it impossible to exert its true combat power. Moreover, if they are not lucky, they may encounter the deep sea, and the enemy will not give them the opportunity to replenish resources at that time, so it is natural to always maintain the best state. Thank you, Commander. Lexington's eyes lit up and he took it without hesitation. After all, Lexington's nickname for the aluminum-eating maniac was not for nothing. With a small mouth open and a few bites, he chewed the aluminum block and swallowed it. The speed was so fast that it formed an illusion in front of Gao Xiang. After finishing his meal, Lexington looked eagerly at Gao Xiang, as if he hadn't eaten enough yet. Upon seeing this, Gao Xiang simply took out a small pile of aluminum blocks and handed them over. Lexington saw this, his eyes shining brightly, and he immediately took them and started to eat. Although Lexington always pays attention to maintaining elegance, even when replenishing resources, a small pile of aluminum blocks still drops at an astonishing speed. Chapter 8. Encountering the Deep Sea. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Watching Lexington eat sweetly, Gao Xiang also had an interest in tasting it. After all, with the same physical fitness as Lexington, Gao Xiang could also eat steel, chew aluminum, use oil as a beverage, and use ammunition as a biscuit like a ship mother. So Gao Xiang took out a piece of aluminum and tentatively bit it, only to hear a bang. The aluminum was bitten into a gap, and a small piece of broken pieces entered Gao Xiang's mouth. Then he chewed it and it tasted really good, chocolate-flavored. Seeing Gao Xiang also eating aluminum blocks, Lexington felt a bit helpless. She didn't expect that the first person to compete with her for aluminum blocks was not the aircraft carrier mother built by Gao Xiang in the future, but his supervisor himself. It really gives people a strange feeling. At this moment, Gao Xiang also picked up a small pile of aluminum blocks and ate them. After all, in terms of appetite, he was no less than Lexington. At present, Gao Xiang can use both human food and resources to supplement consumption. When normal human food cannot be obtained at present, he can only use resources to satisfy his hunger. Gulu. After eating some aluminum, my mouth felt dry and my tongue felt dry. I took out 2 cans of oil and handed one to Lexington. Gao Xiang took a big sip of the other jar of oil. It tasted good with cola. After eating and drinking enough, taking a break, Gao Xiang and Lexington arrived at the shore, and Lexington prepared to deploy the hull. As the light and shadow filled the sky, a huge steel warship with a fully open flight deck appeared before us. "Commander, please come up." As the first ship mother who could get Commander on board, "Please face the wall if you want to tilt," Lexington was extremely happy. Gao Xiang nodded, and then Lexington held on to Gao Xiang's hand. With a spatial transition, Gao Xiang and Lexington appeared on the bridge of the ship. This is a special ability of the ship's mother. As long as she is not too far from the ship's body, she can instantly transfer others to the ship's body, which is very convenient. "Commander, where are we going next?" Lexington asked Gao Xiang beside him. "Where are you going?" "Let's take the deserted island as the center and explore around it," Gao Xiang thought for a moment and replied, "After all, I've just arrived in this world and don't know anything about the surroundings. If I run into a deep-sea lair due to arbitrary directions, it will be a disaster." "I understand." Lexington nodded and then maneuvered the ship to sail, starting to turn around in the surrounding area as Gao Xiang said. "Lexington, send out carrier-based aircraft to explore the surroundings and see if other ships can be detected. Also, be on guard for the deep sea, as we don't know if the deep sea will attack again," Gao Xiang instructed. "Yes, Commander." Lexington nodded and immediately activated the lift on the ship's hull. Several F-2A Buffalo fighters with yellow wings and silver fuselage were lifted onto the deck, and then the propellers began to rotate. One followed the other at lightning speed along the deck, suddenly rising to high altitude and heading in all 4 directions to explore the surveillance mission. "Commander, let's go back to the bridge where we can see the impact transmitted by the carrier-based aircraft," Lexington suggested. Gao Xiang had no objection to this and then followed Lexington into the bridge. Similar to the Lexington-class aircraft carriers of the United States during World War II, the young girl's hull was also an island bridge and a huge, flat chimney located on the starboard side. As we entered the bridge, we saw 4 light screens suspended within it, displaying the sea conditions in 4 nearby directions, which continued to expand outward. These dynamic images were naturally real. Time images transmitted back by the shipborne aircraft sent by Lexington. Gao Xiang doesn't want to roast about the black technology in the world, but pays attention to the pictures on the screen so that he can react at any time. "Commander, we have found traces of the deep sea." At this moment, Lexington exclaimed in surprise, and Gao Xiang also saw the corresponding image on the screen. This is also the first time Gao Xiang has seen the real deep sea in this world. As the carrier-based aircraft approached, Gao Xiang became increasingly clear about the ships at sea. With black paint, unique bridge design, and aggressive gun barrels in addition, the black aura entwined like resentment creates an uncomfortable sensation, and the slight pink lines on the hull give off a strange feeling. "Commander, this is a regular level deep-sea destroyer." After seeing the appearance of the ship, Lexington reported. Like ship carriers, the deep sea also has classifications for destroyers, light cruisers, heavy cruisers, light carriers, submarines, and even combat cruisers, battleships, aircraft carriers, and other types of ships. Each type of ship is classified into different levels based on color, namely ordinary, pink, gold, and colored. The deep sea that appears on the light screen is undoubtedly the lowest level of ordinary deep sea, and it is also the most vulnerable type of ship destroyer. Chapter 9. Sinking. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Deep-sea destroyers, no matter how they look at them, are one by one miserable fate. These combat puppets with stiff and numb expressions are confined to the fish-shaped ship, fast but vulnerable to a single blow. The weapons on the ship's hull are only two small caliber guns and torpedo launchers that are better than nothing, and no more luxurious than one or two anti-aircraft guns or deep projectiles. Even the weakest destroyer-in-chief can easily bully them. This means that the battle damage rate of deep-sea destroyers is astonishingly high, but there are always a large number of deep-sea destroyers emerging in any sea area. Perhaps the deep-sea side has long turned a blind eye or become accustomed to it, allowing them to serve as cannon fodder under the fierce gunfire of the Admiral's mother. And it is these low-energy and massive destroyers that support the bottom layer of the vast war machine in the deep sea. And whether this deep-sea destroyer is separated from the main force, or has other tasks such as collecting resources or exploring the surrounding area, Egg will not let go of Gao Xiang. It is a good opportunity to take a look at Lexington's combat power, although it makes Lexington feel very bullied about deep-sea destroyers in the theater of war. At this moment, the presence of the carrier-based aircraft was noticed, and the deep-sea destroyer lifted the muzzle. A string of flames shot in, forcing the carrier-based aircraft to quickly lift and dodge. "Commander," asked Lexington next to him. "Since you encounter her, let's sink her." Although it feels like a small trial, as the first battle, it can at least familiarize you with the battle, Gao Xiang chuckled lightly. Although Lexington has countless combat memories and related points provided by his sisters, he has not personally fought them, so these points are all theoretical and have not been translated into practice. Therefore, it is precisely through this deep-sea expulsion that Lexington can familiarize himself with his combat style and gain some experience. In this world, the higher the level of a ship's mother, the stronger her strength. In the classification of ship's mother's levels, levels 30.60 are intermediate ship's mother, levels 60.90 are advanced ship's mother, levels 90 and above are general level ship's mother, and levels 120 and above are epic level ship's mother. It can be said that Gao Xiang's current level is not even a rookie, but a newcomer, and eliminating the deep sea is the main way for ship's mother to upgrade. "Yes, Commander." With a promise, Lexington raised the ship's gymnastics and the elevator. This time, a fleet of 6 planes, consisting of SBD.3 Dreadnought and BTD.1 destroyer bombers, were raised above the deck. Speaking of dealing with a mere deep-sea destroyer, using 6 carrier-based planes seems to be a bit of a loser. However, Gao Xiang did not know that Lexington attached great importance to this battle. Although the opponent was the lowest-level deep-sea destroyer, it was precisely because of this that no accidents or mistakes were allowed to occur. After all, if such a weak opponent allowed her to run away and it was the first battle of great significance to Lexington, even if Gao Xiang did not blame her, Lexington's own sense of honor would not let him go. After all, this is a huge stain for Lexington. Due to the limited combat radius of the bombers, Lexington turned the bow of the ship and drove towards the deep sea. Soon, he saw the presence of a black spot in the distance, which was the target of the deep sea drive. At this point it was already within the effective range of the bombers, so 6 bombers quickly leaped from the deck and headed towards the direction of deep sea expulsion. And the deep-sea destroyer seemed to sense the danger. After all, there were carrier-based aircraft present, and there might be an aircraft carrier nearby. Although deep-sea destroyers had low intelligence, at least the instinct to seek benefits and avoid harm still existed. They immediately abandoned the entangled carrier-based aircraft and prepared to retreat. It was just too late by now, and the bombers had just risen from the deck. Even the speed of deep-sea expulsion, no matter how fast, could not keep up with the speed of the bombers. Quickly, the bomber caught up with the deep-sea destroyer and then dived down, ready to drop the bomb. At this point, the deep sea was still resisting, firing its only anti-aircraft gun and emitting sparse flames, but it posed no threat to the bomber formation. Under the command of Lexington, 6 bombers were locked in various directions that could be avoided by deep-sea destroyers. Even if deep-sea destroyers managed to dodge 1 or 2 bombs, the remaining bombs were absolutely impossible to dodge. Using deep-sea destroyers to fend off fragile defenses, just one bomb could sink her to the bottom of the sea. In fact, it was precisely like this. Faced with the sudden attack of bombers, although the deep-sea destroyer made great efforts to maneuver and dodged 2 bombs, the third one was unable to dodge and hit the bow of the ship. Suddenly, half of the hull was damaged, and the remaining bombers poured their bombs onto the deep-sea destroyer. Subsequently, the entire body of the deep-sea destroyer was shrouded in gunfire and black smoke, probably receiving so many bombs, I'm almost completely shattered. Sure enough, when the flames dissipated, the image of the deep-sea destroyer had already been lost on the sea surface, and even fragments had not been left behind. Chapter 10. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Well done, Gao Xiang smiled and naturally praised his own ship mother. Sure enough, upon hearing this, Lexington couldn't help but smile on his face. Unfortunately, the core was not modified and dropped, Lexington said helplessly after having the carrier-based aircraft search carefully and found nothing. Similar to the battle activities in the Battleship Girl game before Gao Xiang, you can obtain a core that can be used for ship modification by eliminating the corresponding ship mother. Eliminating deep-sea destroyers may drop the destroyer modification core, eliminating deep-sea light cruisers may drop the light cruiser modification core, eliminating deep-sea battleships can drop the battleship modification core, and eliminating deep-sea aircraft carriers can drop the deep-sea modification core. Of course, the probability of dropping and transforming the core is only about 1/10 in this world, far lower than the probability in the game. This is also an unavoidable thing, after all, the probability of dropping the modified core is low enough. Gao Xiang also said helplessly. If the modified core is so easy to drop, then it won't be so rare in this world. But let's evacuate this area first, Gao Xiang seemed to think of something. After all, our existence may have been exposed to the deep-sea side. If the deep-sea expulsion just now was a solo mission, it would be fine. But if it was responsible for exploration and search missions, it means there must be another deep-sea formation nearby. So it is estimated that our message has been exposed to that side long ago. Perhaps at this time, the deep-sea formation is heading towards us. Halfway through, Gao Xiang suddenly found the atmosphere a bit heavy. Before he could ask, he heard Lexington smirk bitterly and say, "Commander, I've noticed that you still have the talent for a crow's beak." What? If it was a cartoon effect, it could be seen that there was a capital question mark above Gao Xiang's head. However, Gao Xiang quickly realized that something was wrong. Following Lexington's line of sight, he saw another screen where a 9-member deep-sea formation was rapidly approaching, cutting through white waves. From all directions, it should be heading straight towards the direction where he and Lexington were located. The deep-sea formation consists of a 2-body deep-sea battleship, an integrated deep-sea heavy patrol, a 4-body deep-sea light patrol, and a 2-body deep-sea destroyer. Although there are no aircraft carriers or light carriers, it is still an exceptionally powerful formation for Lexington. After all, even after defeating that deep-sea destroyer just now, Lexington's level has only been raised to level 3, with little improvement in combat power, and there is no qualification to compete with this deep-sea fleet. It seems that the deep-sea destroyer has reported the situation. Gao Xiang's mouth twitched, most annoyed by this kind of hitting the small, coming the old, no, coming a group of plot. Can't we level up the monsters well and directly increase the difficulty level? Is it really good? Gao Xiang finally knew that those cool articles were all deceiving. Those villainous bosses constantly sent minions to feed the protagonist experience, allowing the protagonist to fight monsters and upgrade. As the protagonist became stronger, they sent in small leaders, and generals, allowing the protagonist to constantly upgrade in battle, rather than using their absolute strength to kill the protagonist when he was still weak. By the time they truly realized the threat posed by the protagonist, they had truly grown up. In the end, it is natural for the protagonist to have a happy ending by defeating the villainous boss. The clichés of such novels are just for reading and feeling satisfied. If you truly believe them, you are the biggest fool. And at this moment, isn't it like sinking a destroyer? As a result, a 9-member deep-sea fleet immediately came to trouble. Indeed, the real world is so realistic that it is despairing. "Commander, what should we do next?" Lexington asked with a serious expression, as this deep-sea fleet was beyond what she could handle. "Lexington, can you control carrier-based aircraft to attack the deep sea while maintaining high speed?" Gao Xiang didn't answer directly, but asked instead. Of course, as a prototype ship, one is born with sufficient mastery of the ship's equipment. Lexington immediately replied, "If it is a sister ship or even an unnamed ship, if the level does not reach a certain level, it is impossible to annihilate the enemy in high-speed motion. After all, in terms of mental and computational abilities, the sister ship of the same level is much lower, and the level of control over the ship's equipment is also much worse. Only by waiting for the level to improve can it be achieved, only by addressing these shortcomings can we achieve it. So Lexington, while there is still some distance, will first strike them with a focus on deep-sea destroyers and light cruisers, and try to reduce them as much as possible." Upon hearing this, Gao Xiang's eyes lit up, and upon learning this, he had a better grasp of the plan that had arisen in his heart. However, for now, he should try to weaken the deep-sea fleet as much as possible. "Yes, Commander," Lexington immediately took orders upon hearing this, and then quickly launched a bomber formation that had sunk several times the number of deep-sea destroyers before, heading towards the approaching deep-sea fleet.